This is CBC Compass.
This is Monday, March 2nd. Here's what's happening now on Prince Edward Island. The cause of a weekend fire in Charlottetown might come as a surprise. Fire officials say hot clothing on a sofa fresh out of the dryer likely led to the blaze. Full details ahead. PEI now has the highest smoking age in the country. You now have to be 21 to buy tobacco or vape products in this province, and more changes are still to come. And a PEI food lab is now testing cannabis thanks to new procedures and protocols. It could save island companies from sending their products off island for testing. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on Compass. I'm Louise Martin. We begin tonight with a warning from the Charlottetown Fire Department about clothes coming out of your dryer and how they could cause a fire. That exact thing happened in a house over the weekend. The details tonight from the CBC's Travis Kingdon.
The inspector says a pile of clothing still hot from the dryer is likely what caused the fire here on Dawson Court, and says while these kind of fires are uncommon, they can happen under the right conditions. The clothes were sitting on the couch in the living room, and when someone left the duplex early Sunday morning, that let more air into the house, which helped start the fire.
As couches are in today's materials are polyurethanes. It's basically a petroleum-based product. And with the clothing that came out of the dryer, didn't have time to cool. It was placed on the sofa itself and spontaneous combust.
Brian says he's only dealt with a handful of fires like this, but says as these materials become more common in both furniture and clothing, islanders should be more careful.
Just be aware that taking clothes out of the dryer, make sure they air out and cool off before packing them in bureaus and stacking them. Make sure they cool down. Again, all factors have to be in line for something like this to happen.
Now, all three people did get out of the building safely, something which Brian says is thanks to the building's working smoke detectors. Travis Kingdon, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Now, along with the fairly rare cause of that fire, there's quite a story behind those three people Travis mentioned getting out of the house. They are all university students, and they all got out thanks to a neighbor who happened to be outside clearing snow. Chris Richard lives across the street. He immediately ran to help. Here's what he says happened next.
They were leaning out the top window, and me and my wife went over to check out, and I opened up the front door, and there was too much smoke. I couldn't even see in front of my face. So then I knew, well, that's why they were out the window. So just came over, grabbed the ladder off the truck, and put it up to the window, and they climbed down, bare feet and everything.
And I understand you actually brought some stuff over for them too to kind of keep them warm, I guess, when they were standing in the snow there.
Yeah, just a couple blankets and a sweater that I had on the bench. They had no shoes or socks or anything on, so it was freezing to come out to, and especially waking up to that. So we did the best we could.
The fire department basically says, you know, if it wasn't for the neighbor who helped out with the ladder, things might have been a bit different. Can you talk to me a bit about your reaction to that, I guess?
Yeah, I never really realized it until they mentioned it. But yeah, if they wouldn't have got out, I guess they could have been in some serious trouble. So I never really thought about it until afterward, but I just wanted to get them out.
Quite amazing, right? Well, firefighters arrived just as that second student was making his way out of the house. The Red Cross says it is helping with emergency needs like clothing, food, other basics, and arranged emergency lodging for two of the students. Well, as you can maybe tell there, we're starting our backyard rink series tonight. The first one up tonight is Rory Beck's home in Sherwood, and Jay's there with a bunch of new friends. I hear it's pretty loud there, too.
Yeah, we're having some fun. Are you guys having a good time? Yeah. All right. That didn't sound too convincing. Are you guys having a good time? Yes. All right. As you can see, Louise, yes, it is indeed loud. I think I might have to get my hearing checked after this. All right, guys, we're at the Beck Arena on Pine Drive. How awesome is this ice surface? You guys really enjoy coming out here and having fun? Yeah. Yeah? Do you mind if I borrow this cool device you have? Whoa, are you all right? Why do I keep on falling? What? Because it's ice, and it's okay to fall when you're on ice. That's why we're all wearing helmets, by the way. There's your safety tip right now, and I really like this little device. Can I borrow it? No. Probably not a good idea. Okay. You have fun on that. I'm going to do the weather. Let's take a look right now at the totals from yesterday's snow. Wasn't a snow day, guys. I know. We got an extra sleep in, some extra time to pack lunches this morning with that 1 hour delay. There's a look at the snowfall totals. Yeah, Mother Nature over-delivering on my 10 to 20 centimeter forecast by a bit, particularly in the Bonshaw area. 28 centimeters of the white stuff fell there. Perfect snowbed making snow, but not the most fun to shovel, certainly this morning. So we did get a good round of snow last night. Luckily, Rory and the folks behind this beautiful rink had a good chance to clean it off and get the ice conditions into really tip-top shape, considering just how sunny and mild it was today. Also a very bad thing for these backyard rinks. Temperatures back down to -3 at the moment. We are looking at winds out of the south. Those winds between 15 to 20 kilometers per hour. They'll pick up this evening, though. That's going to usher in some very mild air. We also have some snow that's set to move in. You can see it falling right now over sections of southern and eastern New Brunswick. That snow could amount to a few centimeters tonight before changing to rain showers overnight into early tomorrow morning. And the reason being, the temperature will be climbing with those warm southerly winds. We'll be around anywhere from 0 to +3 tomorrow morning and anywhere from +3 to +7, depending on where you are on the island tomorrow afternoon. We're going to be at another rink up in Tignish tomorrow. I'm concerned it might be a backyard pool. Luckily, we get a little luckier for the rest of the week with the conditions for the backyard rinks, but a couple of warm days ahead for Tuesday and Wednesday. I'll be back with those details. Plus, we'll have some more fun from this beauty of an ice pad, the Beck Arena here in Sherwood on Pine Drive. Louise?
Thank you very much, Jay. Well, it is now official. PEI has the highest smoking age in the country. You now have to be 21 to buy tobacco or vape products in this province. And there's still one more significant change to come. Carrie Campbell has that story.
This is now one of just a handful of shops in Charlottetown where you can buy e-cigarettes. As of Sunday, access to the store was restricted to those 21 and over. Right now, you can still buy vapes in flavors like fruit, vanilla, cucumber. Flavored tobacco was banned 3 years ago. Something similar is coming for vape products, but as of yet, the province hasn't specified which flavors will be banned or when.
I'm really hoping they don't eliminate flavors. I mean, we have flavored alcohol. Why can't we have the flavored tobacco? If you're of age, I feel like you should be able to make that decision on whether you want flavored or non-flavored product. Yeah, we just kind of wait and see what they're going to do with that.
PEI's Minister of Health has said he intends to ban all vape flavors, but for now the Department of Health is telling retailers it has consulted with industry and advocacy groups and is now exploring options for flavor restrictions, with further information coming later in 2020.
I think that the flavor restriction is key. I know that other provinces are all kind of doing it a little differently, but Nova Scotia has also implemented the flavor starting April 1st. So, I think that when we're talking about youth accessing these products and reducing access to youth, that flavors are the number one.
This store will continue to stock flavored vapes, but in limited supplies, so if changes come suddenly, they won't be stuck with product they can't sell.
So we're not stuck with a massive overstock, just to kind of see how it's going. But for sure, we're still going to continue to carry the flavors until we possibly can.
One manufacturer, Juul, has temporarily suspended production of all flavors except mint and tobacco, saying it may reintroduce flavors with guidance from Health Canada. The industry maintains flavored vapes are an important tool to help people quit smoking. But groups like the Lung Association say vapes haven't been approved for that kind of use, and the flavors just make them more attractive to young people. Carrie Campbell, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Island cannabis companies now have the option to test their products right here on PEI. The hope is that will save local companies time and money while ensuring their products are safe to consume. Jessica Doria-Brown reports.
You drop the sample on it, and then you put the plastic back on it.
This is just one way that BioFood Tech tests for microorganisms like bacteria, yeast, and mold. This lab is used to dealing with food. Now it's equipped to test cannabis oils, extracts, and edibles like this chocolate product, with a whole new set of rules and procedures to make sure every speck of the cannabis used is closely monitored.
Very exciting. I mean, it's a new area. It's a new method of accountability that we never used to do for other products before.
When it comes to testing cannabis, scientists aren't just looking to confirm the levels of THC and CBD. They want to make sure the product is microbiologically and chemically safe.
For healthy individuals, some amount of microbial contamination is relatively, harmless. But we're talking about patients that are using cannabis to treat conditions, okay? And these people might have immune systems that are compromised. That makes them susceptible to illness from, microbial contamination in the cannabis that they might consume.
Officials with BioFood Tech say the goal is to support this growing island industry.
We're here to serve the industry in PEI, and since cannabis is now a legal product and edibles as well, and we have that background of being able to test food products, we felt it was essential that we provide that service to that industry as well.
Next, BioFood Tech hopes to expand its services to help cannabis companies with product development as well. They recently secured the licensing to do so and plan to get started in the coming months. Jessica Doria Brown, CBC News, Charlottetown.
The PEI Snowmobile Association is reminding walkers and skiers to stay off much of the Confederation Trail during the winter months. The association leases more than 400 kilometers of trail across the province from Tignish to Elmira, plus a couple offshoot trails in eastern PEI as well. Dale Hickox is president of the group, and he says it is a safety issue.
We're seeing more and more people walking on our trails, and with their dogs, not on leases. We've even had skiers and snowshoers out on the trail, and it's become a bit of a concern. I've got a lot of calls and concerns coming from members that they're on the trail and they come around a corner and there's a dog running around the trail.
Now, it should be noted, the Confederation Trail in Charlottetown is open for walkers and skiers in the winter. Hickox admits there should be signage on the trails to help remind people where they can and cannot be. He says his group hopes to work with the province to put signs on the trail at various points. CBC reached out to the province but did not hear back. A very excited plane load of athletes arrived back to PEI early this morning. They just wrapped up the Special Olympics Canada Winter Games, and they came home with medals, personal best performances, and loads of great memories. Steve Bruce caught up with a few of the athletes this afternoon.
Oh, here's the celebration.
Yeah. Just hours after landing back on the island, these PEI medal winners are already feeling nostalgic. How could you not after the week they just had?
Scale of 1 to 10, dandy. Really dandy.
It's just I couldn't have asked for a better week. It was just phenomenal.
PEI sent 38 athletes to the Special Olympics Winter Games. They came home with 25 medals and 17 personal bests.
Bruce gloves.
These athletes won gold in floor hockey, cross-country skiing, and bowling. 3 gold medal moments they won't soon forget.
Yeah.
What was that feeling like when you realized that you had one?
Just really excited, I got happy and that.
When I was going around the track, one of the guys was saying, "Come on, Tommy, there's a gold medal waiting for you." So I just shuffled along. When I got almost to the finish line, I heard my sister Susan ringing her bell, yelling and screaming, "Billy!"
The island's floor hockey team won in dramatic fashion, scoring in overtime of the championship game to take the gold.
We all started celebrating. It's like such a feel-good moment. Like my whole team was working their tails off.
And yet all 3 of these athletes say their fondest memories from the games didn't actually come from winning.
Oh, it's totally great cheering on other people, other skiers. There's a lot of memories, I guess, about this and that. Have some fun seeing other new people. And
I have some of the Alberta team on Facebook now, and they're just tremendous guys. And we were talking about the games, and he was telling me how I was standing on my head, and I was telling them how they had some amazing shots.
And these 3, like many on the PEI team, compete in summer sports too, and are already thinking ahead to the Special Olympics Canada Summer Games in Alberta in 2 years' time. Steve Bruce, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Well done, Team PEI. Way to represent. Well, the shavers were buzzing and the hair was flying this afternoon in the gymnasium at Amherst Cove Consolidated. Friends at the school were cheering on grade 7 student Savannah Cutcliffe. She had promised to shave her head if she reached her goal of raising $500 for the Children's Wish Foundation. Cutcliffe raised more than 10 times her goal, and she wasn't alone in getting her head shaved. We will have more on all of this tomorrow night on Compass. That'll get you watching for sure. Much more is still to come on Compass tonight before 7 o'clock. Coming up, PEI's economy is expected to outpace the national average this year, but the Conference Board of Canada says the COVID-19 outbreak could put a damper on growth. A new exhibit profiles the heritage of the Charlottetown's oldest businesses downtown. We'll take a look at that. Plus, members of the Prince Edward Island Native Council were preserving some of their history over the weekend. We'll take you there as well. And as we go to break, a live look tonight at where Jay is on location. Our first backyard rink in Sherwood. Rory Beck will tell us this rink was built by his father when he was just a child, and lots of children playing on that tonight. We'll have more live from there with Jay in just a moment. Stay with us. All right, it is time to check in with Jay with the latest on the weather and the latest on the Beck Rink in Sherwood. It looks like a pretty spectacular night to be out there on skates. I am quite jealous.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's not too cold. It's cold enough that the ice is at least in a solid state. I think tomorrow might be a different story. We'll see how our trip up to Tignish goes. And I got to be honest, I love holding a microphone in hockey gloves. The weather clicker's not working too well. So we have Rory Gordy, who folks might know as Dr. Beck from QEH, right?
Yeah.
A familiar face. And then we have Darcy as well, right? And so we've got the Beck family here, and you folks team up on this, right?
Yeah, it's a 3-man operation to get this up and going and keep it going throughout the winter. So lots of help from these two, and all our kids get to enjoy it, so it's pretty good.
And you're carrying on a tradition that your dad actually was doing going way back, right?
Yeah, it's been
This is 3 generations?
3 generations.
So your dad as well?
Yeah, my dad. I can remember being this age out making the rink with him about 60 years ago. So
you see what I did there when I said going way back? I didn't want to date you too much. Going back 3 generations, and just how much work goes into keeping this ice surface nice and solid, because we had a lot of snow yesterday. You guys have it cleaned off, and it's looking good today.
Yeah, I'm just the unpaid labor, so whenever there's emergency shoveling that needs to be done, I'm usually on call. So.
All right. So if this was a one-man operation, it wouldn't be as much fun for you because this is your yard.
Yeah, it wouldn't be as much fun. It wouldn't be half as big either. So it's certainly a lot easier with the extra help.
Well, we know how it goes as parents. You put the work in, they get to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And we're certainly enjoying it tonight. Let's take a look right now at our temperatures across the Maritimes. They're going to be on the up tomorrow. We'll be looking at strong southerly winds settling in later this evening, and we're down to about -4. May dip down another degree in the next hour or so, and then that temperature will start to tick up as those winds start to pick up out of the south. And we're going to see those winds between 30 and 50 late this evening and through the overnight hours tonight. Coastal areas could see gusts beyond that. So between -3 and -4 this hour across the island. Those winds already have started to pick up now. Summerside, 25 kilometer per hour sustained wind, 26 kilometer per hour sustained wind. We'll be looking at winds in the 25 to 50 range, I think, later this evening. And that's when we're going to see that temperature not surging, but gradually climbing up above the freezing mark by tomorrow morning. Already starting to see a little blue on the radar imagery over Prince County. I don't think they're actually seeing the snow reach the ground just yet up west, but that steadier snow will continue to build in a little later this evening. It'll work its way down to the ground. And we'll be looking at a few centimeters possible before it starts to switch over to a wintry mix. And then eventually we'll be seeing just rain showers through the overnight hours into early tomorrow morning. And that's all as a warm front moves in. We have an area of low pressure up into northern Quebec, heading towards the Big Land as we look towards Labrador. But we have that long frontal system extending to the south. And we're going to get into that warm front and some of those southerly winds bringing in warmer air through tomorrow morning. So you can see the blue going to that wintry mix of pink and then to green, which is the rain showers tomorrow morning. Now, that'll clear out mid to late morning up west. It may persist into the early afternoon for more eastern parts of the island before we see a gradual clearing trend and some sunshine returning through the afternoon hours tomorrow. We're going to watch for some more clouds and with some melting, and after that rain, maybe even some fog that starts to build back in for your Tuesday night. It'll be warm again for your Wednesday as well. So our next 2 backyard rinks, but one of them's indoors on Wednesday. I'm a little bit concerned about the ice conditions tomorrow. We're going to cross our fingers and hope that the ice is good. We'll show off the rink regardless, though. Temperatures at midnight will be between -1 and -2. The snow will be changing to rain showers as that temperature climbs up to around or above freezing tomorrow. And you'll see temperatures between 3 and 6 degrees over western PEI tomorrow, with some sunshine gradually returning late morning and into the afternoon. So snow changing to rain showers with that wintry mix in between overnight and into tomorrow morning for central and eastern areas. That -2 degrees you're seeing, that's your midnight temperature, much warmer by morning. And then tomorrow afternoon, anywhere from 4 to 7 degrees over eastern PEI. So it is going to be, I wouldn't even be surprised if we saw an 8-degree daytime high registered tomorrow. Very warm over the eastern half of the island, and a little bit less, but still very warm as well up west. So morning showers, then clearing, very mild for this time of year for your Tuesday. Not quite as warm, but some steadier rain building in for Wednesday. Temperatures, we're back outdoors with another backyard rink on Thursday, back below the freezing mark as we head into the weekend. And actually Saturday, as we now are into March, and we will be rolling the clocks ahead Saturday night. That's quite a cool temperature. We should be seasonally between 0 and -1 as we look ahead to next weekend. We'll be a bit below seasonal by the time we get into the weekend. That's a look at your 7-day forecast. We'll break down more details with your day planner coming up a little later. Right now, I'm going to get out there and have some fun on this beauty of a backyard rink in Sherwood. Louise?
Thank you very much, Jay. Looking good in your Compass jersey there as well. Look at this beautiful picture today. Wilbert Handerhan sent this in. This is from Huntley PEI, and what a gorgeous picture there. The sun peeking behind those evergreens. Beautiful shot. We'd love to put your photos, as always, on Compass, so please send them to us, and you can do that by email, or you can always tag us on social media as well. Well, we all know there is a lot of history in downtown Charlottetown. You just have to look up at some of the banks and storefronts to see there's a story behind those old buildings. So there's a new exhibit that profiles the heritage of the city's oldest businesses. Here's Natalie Munn, heritage researcher with the City of Charlottetown, to tell us more tonight.
The exhibit is called Down to Business. The focus is our businesses, currently operating businesses, and their history, mainly our oldest businesses. We know we don't have every one, however, we've made a stab at it and we've tried to get as many as we can. A lot of people don't know that the Sherwood Pharmacy originated as the medical pharmacy on the corner of Pownall and Richmond Street. We have a scale that would have been used, say, in the medical pharmacy. It's for the drugs. It's sort of it's really interesting looking. Those are gin bottles. The gin bottles, actually, they're interesting. Those were given to us by Danny Tweel, and he's on the northeast corner of Queen and Kent Street. And when they were tearing down the building that was there, the building had different businesses like a livery stable as well as apparently a bootlegger. And I guess they found hundreds of these gin bottles upstairs when they were tearing it down. Purity Dairy was established in 1946 on Kent Street. They're still there to this day, and it was Eugene Cullen who established it. They've seen a lot of changes over the years. They went from delivering milk by horse and wagon and to trucks. The Canton Cafe is fascinating because George Lee and his partner had come over probably in the 50s. They bought the Lotus Cafe, which is where the Canton Cafe is now, 73 Queen. And when they purchased it, they renovated it and opened the Canton Cafe. And the Canton, as you mentioned, it's sort of an institution in PEI. Heinemann Insurance is our oldest business, and that was started by F.W. Heinemann way back in 1872. He was uniquely suited for marine insurance because, of course, his family were shipbuilders. It's interesting to note that sometimes the families are still operating, over 100 years later. Curry's started in 1903, and it was Frank Curry who began. He worked in a shoe factory, him and Joe Hennessy. So when he struck out on his own to repair in a shoe repair business in 1903, he did it on Queen Street, and it was called The Shoe Doctor. It would change soon to Curry Shoe Repair. Older people tend to enjoy them because they would have, say, gone to school at that school or shopped at that business. It brings back positive memories from them, and in turn we're lucky because we get feedback from them and more information from them as well, and sometimes photos that we can later on display. Younger people don't realize what was, say, on that corner before, and it's nice for them to realize what was there and get an appreciation for their history. This is what we're all about.
So much history in our beautiful downtown. Well, as Natalie mentioned there, the exhibit is called Down to Business, and it's on at the city's Planning and Heritage Department at 233 Queen Street until March 23rd. Well, members of the Prince Edward Island Native Council were preserving some of their own history, and over the weekend, they spent Saturday preparing some traditional Mi'kmaq meals, including eel. Now, some of the participants said they rarely use the skills for cleaning and cooking eels they were taught by their elders, but now they want to make sure those skills are not lost. The eels were boiled with potatoes, onions, and salt.
From what I know, and I'm not a huge expert on them, but they've been a really important traditional food source for the Mi'kmaq people for thousands of years, not only for a food source, but also for medicinal purposes. We've used them for various things like arthritis and sprains and whatnot, from my understanding. Again, I'm not the expert on it for sure, but it's really neat to learn, though.
Organizers hope events like this help keep the knowledge of traditional foods alive and will help connect people with their ancestors as well. Coming up, PEI, as we all know, is a tourist destination and a major economic contributor, but the Conference Board of Canada says the outbreak of COVID-19 could put a damper on the growth of that industry this year. My conversation with the chief economist of the Conference Board, that is ahead on Compass.
I'm Mitch Cormier. Coming up Tuesday on Island Morning, members of the Peers Alliance are holding a couple of more sessions about safe use. Also, harm reduction needs within the community. We'll talk about the first session and what's planned for the next ones on the next Island Morning.
PEI is set to lead the pack again in terms of economic growth in 2020, but the province's hot streak is showing signs of slowing. In its provincial economic outlook, the Conference Board of Canada says PEI is set to post growth of above 3%. That's higher than the national average, but there are concerns about the impact of the coronavirus. Pedro Antunes is the chief economist at the Conference Board of Canada and joins me via Skype from Ottawa. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
So let's begin, if we could, with maybe the good news here. Why is PEI a leader in terms of economic growth in Canada?
Well, and it's not the first time. In fact, PEI has been doing phenomenally well over the last few years. Very strong growth, driven, I think, in large part by a very successful interprovincial and international migration. In fact, the province has been attracting people to its shores, if I can say that, and that's led to strong population growth. It's of course has impacts on residential activity, resale activity in the housing market, and new construction, and it's driven consumer spending and income and consumer spending in the province as well. So definitely a good news story, and we are seeing that strength again in the outlook that we have for this year.
So what are the signs of slowing?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, there are a few things, of course, hampering not just PEI, but in fact the global economy. I think everybody is aware of the risks that we're seeing with respect to the coronavirus, COVID-19. Now, I mean, most of that effect has been in China, and it's affecting, for example, Chinese tourism, which is, by the way, people may not know, but Chinese are the #1 outbound tourist market, and they're obviously impacting PEI. PEI is heavily favored by the Chinese in terms of Canadian destinations. So there's an impact there that we're going to see this year from tourism. The other piece, of course, is on the lobster fishery that we think may be affected here.
So let's dig a little deeper into the impact on tourism. So no cases on PEI, but you mentioned that strong connection to tourism here. So how big an impact could that be to Prince Edward Island?
Well, at the national level, Chinese tourists into Canada account for just over 700,000 tourists, about 1.8 billion. Now, a portion of that will be taken out of the forecast. We've made an assumption that about a third of that will come off this year. It could be worse depending on how long the outbreak lasts or how long before it's more or less contained. But nonetheless, it's Chinese tourists do heavily favor PEI as a destination. So it's about $15 million out of the province, and that's the most significant impact in terms of GDP. It's about 0.2 percentage points out of GDP.
The other big industry that's watching this very carefully is the lobster industry, the fishing industry overall. Now, the island's fishing season begins in May. We've heard stories about the impact already on some of the other Atlantic provinces, but what sort of an impact do you see here on PEI?
Well, I mean, the Chinese have become a very important market for live and fresh lobster, live and chilled lobster exports into that destination. So this is obviously going to have an impact. I think we're going to see exports down, and because, I mean, it's possible that the fishery will find other markets, but it is going to have a price impact. So I think overall this will be quite negative for the lobster fishers this year. And as you mentioned, we'd already seen some of those impacts earlier on during the Chinese New Year for the fishery in the other maritime provinces. But I think this is going to continue to have an impact certainly on price, if not on the volumes themselves.
What are your thoughts on sort of the psychology behind this and that fear factor?
Well, this is something that is really important, and we talked about some of the direct impacts here of, especially on the province of PEI, with respect to Chinese consumer spending easing. But I think when we think about this on a more global basis, let's think about China. It is the #2 economy in the world. In fact, and it's going to be affected by in a situation where the global economy was already not all that robust heading into 2020. So it just means this kind of weakening overall outlook, exacerbated by this kind of panic as to when will this end. As we start to see this panic, and we saw it in equity markets, that has an impact as I mentioned, on business confidence and on consumer confidence. We saw that very much having an impact during the 2008-2009 recession. We're hopeful, and we have seen markets kind of kick back up in the last day. So let's hope that the panic is kind of out of the system, and we'll see some good news in terms of containing the virus.
Pedro Antunes, thank you for joining me.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
And as we go to break, another look at a great backyard rink in Charlottetown. This is in Sherwood, the Beck Rink. A lot of kids there. They were just jumping in a pile of snow. So you don't have to be skating, I guess, to enjoy this backyard rink. There's Jay in his Compass jersey. We will have more from the Beck Rink in Sherwood, Charlottetown, a little bit later on Compass. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Winslow Players came by today to tell us about its latest show in support of the QEH Foundation. It is called Family Antics, and it's coming up in April. Jay caught up with them this afternoon.
Well, I have Gordon, Diane, Roger, and Marlene here to talk about an important fundraiser and I guess a fun night out. Well, 4 nights out if you want to buy tickets to all 4 showings of this play. Winslow Players, big part of raising money for the QEH Foundation every year. And Gordon, tell me about this year's production.
Well, it's called Family Antics. It's about
I think that's all you need to say right there. Family Antics sounds pretty entertaining, but tell me about this play.
It's a great name. It's about a family. The mother leaves the house, left with 2 daughters staying home, and one of them has a boyfriend, and the other girl has a neighbor boy that's a friend who's a little brat, I'd say.
Okay.
And then next thing, 2 aunts arrive, and from there on.
I think this almost writes itself. Am I fair?
I'd say
that's
you're
a fair statement. All right, and you folks are actually part of the cast. Tell me a bit about being a part of this show and what your characters do.
I am Faith Stetson, one of the daughters.
Okay.
And this is the pesky neighbor.
I'm Woody Dodge.
So you'd be the brat, as Gordon was saying.
I'm the brat, yes.
Okay, no offense, right?
No.
All right.
Oh, I have a lot of fun, though.
Okay, I wasn't sure if this was method acting and we were going to see some bratty behavior here, but is this a great, fun comedy that folks are really going to enjoy?
Oh, a great, fun comedy.
And how has been being a part of the production and rehearsal so far?
Oh, a lot of fun. Yeah, a lot of laughs.
A lot of laughs just in rehearsals. I can imagine coming up in April, even more fun if you're an audience member. And the proceeds actually going to help out QEH Foundation, Marlene, through the telethon. And there's a big price tag on a very expensive piece of equipment that the goal is this year.
There's always a lot of things on our list to buy, Jay. This year we have a couple things. The big thing, $1.5 million, is a CT simulator, but we're also looking to raise money for ear, nose, throat, ENT. We're looking for money for that. And we just want to say a great big thanks not only to the Winslow players, but all involved with the Winslow players, all those fans that come all those nights, and they say laughter's the best medicine. You'll get lots of medicine and lots of laughter when you go see them. They've raised already $240,000 to help us out.
This has been a long-term partnership with the Winslow players, and they put on some incredible productions. This one will be at the Carrefour Theatre. What dates?
April the 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th.
Okay, so 4 nights at the Carrefour, and if I wanted to get those tickets, there's a few places to get them, right?
Yes, at the Winslow Irvin, Proud Shoe Store, and the QEH Hospital. And all the cast members have tickets for sale.
So if you're friends with the cast members, they've probably already been calling you, but you can give them a ring as well. Otherwise, tickets available now at those locations just mentioned.
Thank you very much. Lots of options there to get your tickets, and a few options for you to get in touch with us here at CBC PEI. If you'd like to be in our community segment, you can call us at 629-6480 or email us compass@cbc.ca. There are now 27 confirmed cases of coronavirus in Canada, but so far no deaths. Those include 18 cases in Ontario, 8 in British Columbia, and 1 in Quebec. Globally, there are more than 89,000 reported cases in some 61 countries. And the World Health Organization says the disease can be contained so long as countries act quickly. CBC's Nazima Balji reports.
It wasn't business as usual this morning at Nike headquarters in the Netherlands. The American sportswear maker closed its European headquarters temporarily for a deep cleaning after an employee became infected with the coronavirus. A precautionary measure in an office with roughly 2,000 employees.
We can push this virus back.
Aggressive actions like these can stop the spread, says Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, Director General of the World Health Organization.
We have never seen before a respiratory pathogen that's capable of community transmission, but at the same time, which can also be contained with the right measures.
In the last 24 hours, the WHO says almost 9 times more new cases of the coronavirus were detected outside of China than inside. And says Tedros, the containment of the virus should be the top priority.
Your actions now will determine the course of the outbreak in your country.
Though visitors were disappointed, the Louvre remains closed for a second day.
It's sad for art and for culture and for displays.
It's not a mandatory shutdown. A jump in the number of cases in France triggered a walkout by museum workers uncertain about the risks of contracting the virus. The biggest concerns for the WHO remain in Italy, Iran, Japan, and South Korea.
The Republic of Korea has now reported more than 4,200 cases and 22 deaths.
Annual joint military drills between South Korea and the U.S. will be postponed because of growing concerns of the outbreak. But, says Tedros, signs in Korea point to containment as being key.
Surveillance measures are working and Korea's epidemic can still be contained.
The World Health Organization is still not calling the global spread of COVID-19 a pandemic and say concrete actions towards preventing further spread should be the priority. Nazima Walji, CBC News, Toronto.
The race to become the Democratic presidential nominee is closer than ever before. Former Vice President Joe Biden seems to have locked down some key endorsements ahead of the crucial Super Tuesday vote. As he tries to catch up to frontrunner Bernie Sanders, another player may end up in the race. CBC's Katie Simpson reports.
Michael Bloomberg is about to find out if his unconventional campaign is resonating. The former New York City mayor's name will be on the ballot tomorrow for the very first time as voters in 14 states go to the polls for Super Tuesday.
I've won 3 elections so far. I don't plan to start losing now.
Bloomberg met with volunteers in suburban Virginia today, vowing to stay in the race as the field narrows. Senator Amy Klobuchar suspended her campaign, as did former Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Both are expected to endorse Joe Biden.
I talked to Mayor Pete and to Amy Klobuchar. Both talked to Pete earlier today and Amy just a little while ago. And I wish them all the best. I thought both of them behaved themselves, is a nice way to phrase it, but they represented their country and their states very well. And I felt sorry for them, but I'm in it to win it.
Bloomberg has long been seen by some voters as a backup candidate, a high-profile option for moderate Democrats if Biden's campaign faltered.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, South Carolina!
But with his enormous win on Saturday in South Carolina, the former vice president is finally catching up to frontrunner Bernie Sanders.
I just want Trump, glump to be history, November, whatever, 2020.
Bloomberg supporters are unfazed by the evolving race, though some would not be surprised if he's thinking long and hard about the future of his candidacy.
And I feel he'll make the right decision. I feel he makes the best decisions besides making the right decision.
Michael Bloomberg has been polling well in key states, including California, Texas, and right here in Virginia. It could be enough to split the moderate vote between him and Joe Biden, paving the way for Bernie Sanders to have a very big night. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Manassas, Virginia.
For the third day in a row, Greek police have fired tear gas at migrants trying to enter from Turkey. A huge wave of Syrian migrants has been trying to get into Greece since last week. That's when Turkey opened its border with Europe, saying it couldn't handle a new surge of refugees leaving fighting in Syria. Thousands have been camping out in no man's land along the border, waiting, hoping, and demanding to get in. Hundreds of others have reached Greece by water. These images, provided by Turkey, show a Greek Coast Guard vessel pushing away with a boat filled with migrants, even firing warning shots to force the boat back towards the Turkish coast. Earlier, another migrant boat capsized and a young Syrian boy drowned. Costly cancer drugs are being thrown out on a regular basis because of the way the medications are packaged. Researchers say it's costing the healthcare system and taxpayers millions of dollars a year. Rosa Marcatelli with our Go Public unit has the details.
This is the medication that I ended up having to get from the pharmacy.
Medication that costs almost $8,000 per vial.
I thought to myself, wow, am I ever glad I'm a Canadian? Am I ever glad that I don't have to put out of pocket for this?
The price was surprising enough until Deb Hebert had the drug injected by a nurse and realized her dose only required about 3/4 of what was in the vial. The rest was thrown out and a new vial opened the next day for her second dose. The remainder of that one thrown out too. Hebert is on leave from her job in finance at CBC while she battles non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. This researcher says millions of dollars worth of cancer drugs are being wasted because drug makers only distribute the medications in one-size-fits-all vials that hold too much for most patients. Leftovers are often tossed over concerns about sharing vials and a short shelf life.
What people don't realize is that wastage is actually a real cost that's borne by probably the provinces or hospitals or ultimately the taxpayers.
He worked on a study that looked at 12 high-priced injectable cancer drugs. It found $102 million worth of medication is being wasted over a 3-year period. One solution, says this drug policy researcher, is to force drug makers to produce different vial sizes to reduce waste. The UK did that 4 years ago and is now saving millions a year in drug costs.
It's appalling that, again, we have so many demands on our healthcare dollars for drugs and doctors and hospitals and so on, to see this kind of waste.
He says the group that negotiates prescription drug prices in Canada has to make different vial sizes part of the deal when choosing which drugs to buy. But the Pan-Canadian Pharmaceutical Alliance won't say if it does that, only that negotiations are confidential at the request of the manufacturer. Sanofi, which makes Hebert's medication, says it sells the drugs in one vial size because it's a typical dose for the majority of the patient population when you take spillage into account. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
On financial markets, stock markets surged, partially offsetting last week's huge sell-off. So we saw the Canadian dollar 74.87 cents US. The TSX up 290 points. That's the largest single-day increase since December 2018. The Dow up over 1,200 points, nearly 1,300 points on the day. Quick check at commodities. The price of oil almost $2 higher, and gold $28.10 US an ounce higher on the day. Well, Jay, I'm not on the ice, but I'm benched tonight, but I am a member of Team Compass. I may not be on skates, but Team Compass represented this evening.
It looks great. Well, actually, I can't see you, but I have seen you in it before, Louise. The jersey fits it fits perfectly. Well, I don't know if you have already, because it is kind of hard to hear you during the show here, Louise, because these guys are having some fun. But we should give a big thank you, if we haven't already, to Steve Stapleton for dropping off these. I don't know if they go back to the 90s or what, but apparently there used to be a Compass hockey team, and he was nice enough to drop off the jerseys. Unfortunately, for Louise and I, no kid sizes. So let's take a look at your day planner forecast now and what you can expect for tomorrow. And our backyard pool tour kicks off tomorrow. No, I do expect up in Tignish it'll probably be about 3-4 degrees, maybe above the freezing mark as we get into the late morning, early afternoon before it starts to ease back down. Conditions might not be as good as today, but we're going to give it our best. But yeah, as you can see, those strong southerly winds in the morning helping to see that temperature soar. And we'll see daytime highs tomorrow anywhere from 3 to as warm as 7, maybe even 8 degrees for parts of the island. And the showers should wrap up, maybe lingering into the early afternoon for more eastern areas, but gradually clearing through the late morning into the early afternoon. And we will see a return to a mix of sun and cloud developing through the afternoon as well. So mild one for your Tuesday. It will be mild again for Wednesday with some steadier rain in the forecast, but we are in an indoor rink on Wednesday. So that worked out beautifully. Then back to those more seasonal, cooler temperatures, because we are only in early March as we get into your Thursday and Friday. Louise?
All right. Have a great time tonight, Jay. And he says they fit perfectly. I could wear this as a dress, but thanks for the jersey. And have a wonderful evening. We'll see you tomorrow at 6. Good night, PEI.